Hope you enjoyed your break. Now, this one I've been personally excited about. Firstly, on a personal note, I've had the privilege of having both of these amazing people on my podcast, and Ashleigh Plumptre, which today we had beforehand about the clubs. But you can have the great women's football program, but if we don't think about the player, honestly, we cannot have the game which we love and watch, week in, week out. So with regards to today's session, with some themes, the main things we'll be looking at is the player's voice, the team culture. This is from a player perspective and the operations of the sports science team and the manager operations, and then why authenticity is key. And it will come through the conversations through Ashleigh Plumptre and our conversations here of why this is key from a high-performance standpoint of building a great culture. But to kick things off, here's a video from Ashleigh Plumptre of who she is, where she plays for. This is video 1. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Ashleigh Plumptre and I'm a professional football player for the Nigerian women's national team, as well as Al Ittihad women's team in Saudi Arabia. So I've been playing with Nigeria since 2021. My decision to join the team came from more of a personal, a personal drive to know more about my identity, as well as being on a journey with my sister to understand more of my heritage that I never really grew up around. I was lucky enough to have played in an Africa Cup of Nations with them within the last 3 years, and I went to the World Cup as well last year. We qualified for the Olympics this year, but I missed out because I had surgery in April on an Achilles injury, which I've had for a couple of years now. So currently I'm coming back from that. I'm in a position where I'm getting back onto the pitch, and I guess that nicely brings me into some of the things I wanted to talk about, from a player perspective, from an injury, rehab, medical standpoint. What I found in my experiences in professional football, and even I went to university in the United States, and obviously it's very professional over there. But being able to have good, direct, clear, concise communication with medical staff, as well as having a level of, and I think this is really hard in football, but a level of trust where you can build a foundation of, you have to build a good relationship in general in medical teams, but especially when you're working one-on-one with players, in my opinion, and getting to know the player well enough that when they're communicating with you, especially when it's on an understanding and experience of pain, how the physios manage that, how they manage the emotional side, the physical side, and granted, as players, we rely a lot on our own self-motivation to get us going.
Great. I clipped it there because there's more to come. Kelly, I'm going to start with you, because you worked with Ash last season. Could you just give a bit behind the scenes of working with her, and we'll tailor it into the player's voice side of things as well, and why that's crucial in the women's game in general?
Yeah, one, Ash is an amazing human being, so anyone that needs anyone in women's football to stand up for the right things and talk about the right things, Ash is your woman, not only because she plays at a high level and she's an amazing athlete and footballer, but she is grounded and she plays football not to win championships, although we all want to win a championship. She plays football to change humans' lives, and that is why she went to Saudi Arabia. So I couldn't be more proud of her, and a little bit like that journey that she went on. We could go on and on, just her as a case study. People over the years using Ashleigh as a commodity, not taking care of her body, not caring about her as a human being, not ensuring she has a long career, a stable career, a consistent career, not caring about the career and the journey of the human being, just taking advantage, throwing her on the pitch, throwing her on the pitch, throwing her on the pitch, lying to her, telling her she's okay, telling her we got you, telling her we're taking care of your medical, telling her that you are great in our hands. We as the club really care about you. If you just do these exercises, take these drugs, follow this physio, you are fine to play on the weekend. No, she wasn't. No, she wasn't for many, many years. But she didn't know because people lied to her. And that is one of the biggest issues in sports in general, men's and women's, We don't care about the human being. And then people don't trust her because no one's done the MRI. No one's done the medical behind the scenes. No one's gotten a clear diagnosis and taken the time to dig through the layers and layers it takes to get a clear diagnosis of a difficult medical situation. So she's been lied to. No one trusts her. She goes into the next environment, can't play. She's judged for it over and over and over. So if there's no better case study, it's Ash. And I couldn't be more proud that in our time last year, we actually stopped the system. We dug into the injury. We figured out what was really causing it. We stopped her from playing. We gave her a break mentally, physically. We helped her get the surgery she needed. We've paused things so she can recover. I hope that we've given her 5 or 10 more years of her career, because everyone in this room, that is why we do this. That is what's important. Your championships don't matter if you've hurt the people in the process, and everyone in this room needs to take responsibility for the human beings of your staff and your players to do the right thing every single moment. And don't get caught up in the money, 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 money. If you're not taking care of the people, your club's going to crumble anyways. And your identity and your culture is going to crumble anyways. So I couldn't be more proud of Ash. I can't be more proud to sit here and see her stand up and talk about her journey, because it's been a horrible one. It's been a horrible one, and she has not been taken care of. That's the truth.
Thank you for
Sorry,
that. No. This is why we're here. And it's even built a friendship with us three, and like to get her on board meant a lot to me, because firstly we've been doing fitness tests and Ash beats me all the time, but when we get on conversations it goes back to our third point. I'm giving you the hint about authenticity. This is the reason why. Evie, I'm going to bring you in about the trust, because you've worked in so many cultures, you've worked with different teams in different continents. Could we just touch on going from the player's voice again of why this is important as well? I know Kelly's touched on it with Ash's perspective, but you in general with the different teams.
Yeah, I think the more I've been to different clubs and different environments, I think a big part of the system, I think the problem with the system is the ego. I think from a practitioner standpoint, and we all have been there, and I think she talks about this stuff. And I've been in a club in international level teams where we started to refine a little bit of our processes and systems in order to protect that player voice and autonomy. And the most important part is to have everyone on board, not only from a sports science perspective, but from a head coach perspective, from a leadership perspective, the people that make the decisions every day, and build an environment that players can thrive. And how that looks like is the brief system. So after camps and it's cool to be able to be on the international level and also in the club level, because I was able to refine my processes so then I could use it in a club level, because it's two completely different worlds.
So what's the difference? And I'm going to give you this question as well, Kelly, so be prepared. So what's the difference, would you say?
Yeah, so international level, you only have 10 days with the player, right? And the clubs are the ones that know more about the player. And if you're a practitioner and you let your ego stand in the way, it's easy to just be very myopic in terms of what you're going to do with a player. And if they, like Ash says, like sometimes people from the club says this is the right thing to do, but it's not even what she knows that is good for her body. So a good case study from a national team perspective is we started doing debrief systems after every camp where the players have the voice. So they tell us exactly what went well, and we created the culture that they were comfortable saying that to us. And from my practitioner lens, I used to have this gym sessions, and I normally would do mandatory gym sessions in the past. And I started making it optional and just starting to look at trends. I started diving into more human behavior and kind of like understanding what are human kind of things that we like and we dislike and stuff like that. So I started to put as optional gym sessions. And I started seeing there's not a lot of people would come to the gym. And as a practitioner, the first thing that I go is like, they think I'm terrible. They think I'm the most awful practitioner ever. But I was in a very good leadership group, and we kind of zoomed out, and we said, okay, players are coming to camp. They're coming from club environments. Most of those players are playing in championship, in First League, Champions League, a variety of different tournaments. They come almost burned out, and you have 10 days, and you're about to play very important games against very important teams. And for us, we started talking about essentialism. So what can we do in our camp? We stripe all the endless meetings, analysis meetings. I was in environments that we had normally 3 video analysis meetings sometimes in a day. We kind of put all to the side. And we realized our girls were not able to have single rooms. And sometimes we don't even think about that, right? But they would have roommates. So then all of a sudden you have 4 or 5 different meetings. You have training sessions. You're ready to play one of the best teams in the world, and you don't have time for yourself because you're always with people. And if you're in this industry, you know how that feels. If you're constantly in meetings, constantly meeting people, and you don't have your own space. We were able to finally get them single rooms, and the shift on that optional gym session completely started changing. So I had 99% of the people coming to the gym without me saying anything to them. It's kind of how, when we talk about behavioral change, we need to really dive deep into how do we create that change. And I think it comes, first of all, the player needs to be motivated. So how do we create the environment that they can be motivated? The second time is opportunity, having the skill sets and having the people, the resources around it. And we were able to see that once we, first of all, gave them time to have mental space for themselves, then they didn't have to think, I have an optional gym and I have a time that I can have 1 hour to myself, to speak with my family, or to just be. Mm-hmm. And of course, if I'm me and I'm completely burned out, I'm going to try to get the hour. Gym is important, but it's not as important as my well-being. So then it was quite cool to kind of think about, we listened to them, we designed the environment as a whole where everybody spoke the same language. It's not just me as a sports scientist, the head coach, our logistics people were in the same room talking that, our medical performance, people that are in the top that doesn't necessarily need to be involved in the day-to-day, mm-hmm. but they were there and they listened to it and they made everything around possible for that to happen. Because we know that for us to have single rooms and not roommates, there's a lot of money involved, and so that's the importance of bringing everyone in the same room.
Kelly, could you add your thoughts? I saw your body language, but one I want to add on to it is like the importance of listening, like really listening, not like one ear out the other, and actually then put it into practice. I'll just love your thoughts on that, please.
I think it's a massive difference between national team and club, and this is where I think my career has been very helpful because I've gone back and forth and I've straddled it. So every time you get, the club environment is chaotic and crazy, and every single day, back to back to back to back to back to back. So do your staff, does your leadership have time, care enough, and going to invest their time and energy to have these meetings? Mm-hmm. Often not. Yeah. The amount of times in club where staff was like, I just don't have time for that. Are we done? Can we move on? Like, can we do this meeting in 30 minutes? Can we do this meeting? You want to talk about everyone on your team? You want to care? You want to give them the time, the energy? It takes 3 hours. Like, that's just the truth. Mm-hmm. Do we have 3 hours every single day to do it? No. So we need to be efficient practitioners. We need to document things. We need to make sure we're having real honest and transparent communication. We need to have plans and progress. Everything needs to be documented, written down, in a system, in a structure. Most clubs in women's football don't have the resources for this. Mm-hmm. You can barely, everyone's using Google Docs. Maybe an app here, an app there, an app for this, an app for that. Give me an app, you get an app, you get an app, you get an app. You can't. It's so hard in the club system to really, really take care of every single player. But the benefit of the national team system, for 10 days. You have months to prepare. You have weeks to prepare. You are having these conversations step by step between every single camp. You're putting the information in. You're checking on players. Everything is being updated, documented, done really, really professional. And often, at the international level, you have the best practitioners. You have a lot of expertise. You have people who've been through the journey. You go to the club level, if you don't have the resources, you might be starting with someone straight out of university who you're asking to be an elite sports scientist making really difficult decisions, but they don't know what they're doing. So the complication between being an elite professional women's national team environment in 2024 versus even 15 years ago to be in a club environment who maybe you're an independent club, maybe you're not. Maybe you're at one of the biggest men's clubs in the world, but you're not independent. You don't get to make your own decisions. You don't get to hire your own staff. This guy's been working with the U14 boys. Here you go. He'll be great for your women's team. Like, still, decisions are being made not about the expertise of female athletes, the expertise of the women's game, the unique identity and culture of the women's game. We're still not doing that because resources, it's easier to do this. He's been here a long time and he's not really that good, so we'll move him over to that side. Like, the amount of times that happens for the women's game, it's like, this happened last year to me. We don't really want this team doctor on our men's side, so here you go, women. And we're like, we don't want him. He's misdiagnosing a million things on the men's side. Don't give him to me. I don't want him on my side. I want someone who's going to come in, care about my women, properly diagnose, go through the processes, ensure that our environment is the most professional it can be. And I think that's one of the big challenges between national team and clubs who are now trying to professionalize in 2 years when professionalization of the women's game is a marathon. We need to stop sprinting the marathon. We need to go step by step. I love the fact of having the criteria, but like, it's a journey. Let's go on it together, and let's bring all the clubs and all the practitioners and all the expertise together and say, in 7 years, we're going to be in a much better place. If we race now, in 7 years, it's going to start to crumble. Look at the USA. Look at what's happened with the professional game over there. It crumbled 3 times before it found stability. Like, the world, listen. Do not race the marathon. Do not sprint the marathon. You will just crumble. And all of your practitioners and people will struggle on the journey. So let's do it right. Let's do it well. Let's do it together. Let's educate each other and go on this journey. Players will be better and practitioners will be better. Because so many times the leaders in organizations don't protect these people. They're worried about their job. They're worried about their next... And they put these guys under so much pressure, and people crumble under it. And we just all, in this room, if you take anything from this, like, let's educate and move through this journey together. Let's not try to race to become the best and win this and win that. It's not going to benefit. It's not going to benefit the human beings that you're dealing with every single day.
And I assume also building the foundation of the team culture, but foundation of the whole infrastructure for facilities and so on and so forth. Lead to the next one so naturally. Could I have the second video, please?
Who are we as people, really? What do we bring to an environment? And then all the things like, I'll give you an example recently. The first 2 games of the season here, I haven't played. And it's interesting to take a step back. And I'm probably one of like the leaders on the team. And normally it comes through me being a part of the team in terms of playing, but like being a leader and not having that opportunity right now, I still feel like, because the staff here know me and I know myself, my voice is still heard in terms of what I can contribute to the team off the field, how I can influence them going into a game even though I'm not playing, and that comes from forming in an environment where people feel understood and safe, and you're known more than just being a player. You know, like, people still, like, and I'm just saying this because some of my teammates have said it, like, they said even though I'm not playing, just my presence or them being able to, like, let's say 2 plays before the game felt really nervous, but because I was still in the changing room and put myself in that environment even though I'm not playing, they felt like me being there and them able to talk through their nerves and things with me was just as beneficial as if I was playing, you know, because I'm still there. And that's not because of what I can do with my feet, you know, that's about the interactions we have as human beings.
And in that video clip, she shared that when she's coming back from injury, she's been around the team, not playing, but it's having an influence around the players around her and this new role. And I'm bringing this up, Kelly, because you worked with her, and you said it's important to have that break. In a player's perspective, having that break is on my own, I'm training on my own, she was training in Dubai, but now she's back, she's actually got a new identity and freshness. Can we bring this up of leadership, but also the power of a break with the right nurturing and care? And even if that you left, you're still providing care, what you do.
Well, there's a couple things. One, captaincy is such a difficult thing for, I think, clubs. And oftentimes, well, my situation was I was being told by a director of football, this should be your captain. And a week later, I was told by the director of football, oh, she needs to be your captain, somebody different. Oh, and a week later, I was told, no, this third person needs to be a captain. So the point being, okay, the club needs captains, but the human being needs to be ready to be a captain. The captain is a massive role. I had been interacting with Ash all summer as she went through the World Cup and prepping to come into the team. I knew she wasn't in the place and space to be a captain and a leader. I knew she was exhausted. I tried to explain to the club many times about the importance of, after a World Cup, players need a break. They need a break mentally, physically. It's a massive lead up into a World Cup. It's one of those life-changing events. Like, you can't just turn around in 2 weeks and play a game. Like, the systems, the leagues, the clubs need to understand player care and player welfare from we're all in this together, mentality. So when she came in, of course, she was getting pressure to beat. She's an amazing human and amazing leader. She was getting pressure from the club, from the general manager, from the players. You need to be our captain. You need to be our captain. She wasn't ready to be the captain. She didn't have the energy. It wasn't what she wanted. So one big thing to all of this player welfare and care is to actually talk and spend time. Once again, this is hours spent with your players. This is not seeing them on the pitch for 15 minutes. This is setting up player care meetings regularly where players know they can come in and talk about things having nothing to do with their football performance, but who they are as a human, what they're going through in life. So you as a leader or a coach or a practitioner really understands where you're meeting this player at. And this comes back to time, energy, and commitment, which often we don't get. We don't get it from our leaders. We don't get it from our clubs. We didn't even have an office. So where are we going to have these private meetings? And people saying, you don't need an office. You just coach football. No, I don't just coach football. We're taking human beings on a journey of life and professionalism. An office space is a really important thing. And these are like those tiny little, niggles and rubs that everyone's like, you don't need that. Yes, you do. You have to really see this as a professional business, as a professional operation. And for her, she also didn't want to be captain because she didn't know the culture. She didn't know the culture of the country. She's like, how am I going to lead people that I don't even understand the culture yet? First, I need to become embedded. First, I need to understand what I'm working with. Same reason she went to Nigeria. Understand it's a different place and space. You can't take one model from one country, stick it into another, and job done. Everything you're creating is this high-performance ecosystem that is every single unique individual within your ecosystem has to come together, has to learn how to work together every single day, every single minute. Some people just think, oh, that just happens. It doesn't just happen. It doesn't just happen. And every voice, every human is really, really important to this, and it takes a lot of time and energy, which then goes on, if you want a great team culture, you cannot follow the men's game of, we're going to hire you and fire you within 2 weeks, 3 weeks. If you don't win, you're out the door. The women's game is about a journey of development, a journey of professionalism, young practitioners, young players going on this journey together, and a club that supports them, a national team that supports them. When winning and losing is everything, you're going to miss the absolute most important thing about the women's football culture, which is we do this together for the human beings, for the next generation. So if you're out there, don't you dare follow the men's game. Don't you dare follow that Premier League model. Yeah? That within 3 weeks or 3 months, that coach is fired and you get the next one. 1, it's not financially sustainable. 2, it's brutal on the human beings. And 3, it's not what women's football is all about. And we have to have independence in the women's game to make our model what we stand for and why we do this and what we've been through. And that team culture, player care is absolutely something we can do so much better than the men's game. And I promise you, in 20 years, the men's game is going to be following the women's game, because this is something they don't do well.
Ivi, I'm going to bring you in with a good case study when England or the Lionesses played Ireland. They lost 2-1 but scored a late goal. And then the next game, you beat France, which was such a great win. and you're on camera. It's so cool to see you on the pitch. Could you just share the behind the scenes relating to team culture? Because the celebration against the Lionesses was really a great situation, but you lost. Like Kelly just said, it's not about wins and losses. It actually built confidence and momentum. Could you just share the transition of that game onto France and how that's significant to team culture?
Yeah, I think for that specific camp, I think it was a very cool way to see how that we are creating that environment for players to thrive. And I remember the second game, we went in a completely different environment. It was still in Ireland, but we did it in Cork instead of Dublin. Normally Dublin is our home base. We also had one of our players that just returned from pregnancy and had her baby Rosie within the camp, which it was unbelievable how it completely shifted the environment, having the baby around, and everybody was in great mood, and that atmosphere really helped. And it kind of speaks to our leadership in terms of our head coach and everybody around that is trusting the process. Where, I mean, I started with them about a year and a month, and the shift that we've had since that day one, where we went through those debrief systems, those feedback from players to make sure we knew which feedback to listen to, because of course sometimes when you give too much of a voice, they want everything. But we prioritize it in terms of like, what can we do to make that possible for them? And everybody was playing with freedom. Everybody was, even like now players, because we had such a big break, they just want to get in because they like to be around the environment, at a different environment, and they know that they can slowly thrive and thrive even more. So yeah, and that, like I said, it starts from the kits, you know, having the right kits and having the right size of kits.
Yes.
Having established processes and systems where practitioners, especially at the club level, I think when we talk about, because I've been in a lot of clubs where we have to have such limited time, and we're there from 8 to 5, and we don't have time to reflect as a practitioner. Mm-hmm. So I think everybody that is in women's football that is kind of going to the marathon, but it's more in the sprint right now, right? We want to get to the marathon. We need to create the space as practitioners, as people, as staff members, to reflect also what we do, because that automatically is going to reflect on how we treat our players. So if in all my processes and systems, and I'm talking about Excel sheets, like for me as a sports scientist, right? Or my Google Doc, I do not leave the office until I go back and I have a journal log of everything we've done in the pitch. And that can be the drills that we've done, the time that we spent on them, but also it was sunny today, or it was really rainy in England. That completely shifts the entire environment in training. And that actually,
So the mood, the emotion.
The mood, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have, when we ask the player how they're doing every day in the morning, we talk about physical fatigue and mental fatigue. And nowadays we only ask them, are you guys fatigued? But as a player, and now as a player too, so I kind of remember thinking, sometimes my body is feeling exhausted, my mind is fresh. Or sometimes the other thing is happening, I'm very tired mentally, but my body is ready to go. So we need to discern that as practitioners, and we need to see those subtle things that would actually, and I think we're only going to be able to do that if we don't have time to do it. We can't let that be the excuse. So establish processes and systems that will challenge you as a practitioner to think about those things. And before you leave the office, I have to go through actually the day, what worked, what didn't work, what was I emotional. A lot of times when I'm doing warm-ups, I'm like, I feel completely off. And then I have to dig deep into like, why am I completely off? Because my players see that. And they come to me and it's like, are you all right, Ivi? Mm-hmm. And you don't think that players see through, and they see everything.
Can we touch on that with the check-ins of players? I know you said the 3 hours, but I'm going to bring in Ash again because we've had conversations, but even like traveling to games and traveling back from games, was that like a great moment, doesn't matter about the result, where you could check in and really evaluate the mood on the bus and then see the body language of where you need to speak or where they need some space to reflect because they may have just had an awful game. Did you see things like patterns like that from last season?
Yeah, there's the airport. We traveled a lot on plane. So there's the airport, there's also the buses, and I think it's this fine line of that emotional energy. But when it comes to like authenticity, if we've already created this culture where conversation happens, if we've already created this culture for years where they can be honest about the way they feel about something. I remember at Lewis a couple years ago, we started, I think we called it Mental Mondays. When they came in, so they played on Sundays, and we had them come in Monday before training, and there was 25 minutes where they knew it was Mental Monday. That was just their time to totally detox their brain from the weekend. We started it with a practitioner for the first 4 weeks, but then we had it player-led. And sometimes they were in playing cups and bags and fun games. Sometimes they were eating candy. I know, heaven forbid. But the point was being that they were allowed to be a kid. They were allowed to be themselves. They were allowed to detox from the game, whether they felt great, whether they felt terrible. Because what I saw in England was this: if we won, oh my God, we were the greatest, and Champions League is where we're going. And if we lost, oh my God, we're terrible, every player needs to go. There was no balance, no in-between in England. There was no steadiness. It was highs and lows. It was like, whoa, we need to stop this. You cannot be a high-performance human if one day you're here and the next day you're there, and all that happened was a silly goal that slipped in because of the water. We're the best, we're the worst because of something you can't control. Like, we had to change that whole culture around controllables and non-controllables, and it's okay to feel a certain way. Please feel it, get it out, have all the feelings and emotions you need, but at the same time, like, really balance your thinking and your understanding of what just happened. You could have a terrible game, you could have a great game. At the end of the day, it's one game, one moment. We start again, we start again, we start again. You can't ride the wave of one moment. So these bus trips, and it's my job now, because I'm not the coach, and I'm overseeing it, is I spend a lot of time observing my staff, all the practitioners, coaches, operations, logistics, observing all that, and observing all the players, and observing all the interactions going on. And my time in and around the team, on the bus, on the plane, on whatever's going on, is the check-ins, the bumblebee action where you're getting on someone's shoulder. You know they're not feeling well, or you know they're feeling too high or too low or too this or too that, and understanding the why. So when we get the whole team, the whole staff together the next week, we're already analyzing way before we sit in that room of the highs and lows of each individual person and player and practitioner. If I know Ivi's really, really low, and I know there's something going on in her life as a practitioner, I want to adjust the ecosystem the next week so we get the best out of her.
Yep.
And maybe that's a little time off, or it's a little this, or it's a little that, but also so the players get the best they need. And so I think this authenticity for me is all about actually caring about every staff member and every player's personal and professional journey, and we're using the game of football as the tool to do that. They're all going to go on to do great things in their life if we take care of them now. So that comes down to why we spend all the time and energy to do these little things. Is not for the wins and losses on the weekends. Those will happen. They're going to come. They're going to go. You're going to have great seasons. You're going to have terrible seasons. You're going to promote. You're going to relegate. You're going to have an amazing game in front of a sellout crowd. And the next day, you're going to have chirp, chirp in the background where 5 people show up. This is football. This is life. Let's use that as a tool to make sure everyone's going on that journey together. Make sure we're helping regulate them through the process.
Sort of leads so well, and you said the keyword authenticity, and it's the sort of main theme, and I've been looking forward to this conversation now. So Ivi, bringing in authenticity in the current work you're doing, how do you define it, and how do you implement it in the work you're doing?
I think it first is from my own experience. I think as a practitioner, you have to be able to, like I said, self-reflect and create time for self-reflection. I think it was Orlando Pride when I was there, 2017. It was my first professional full-time environment, and I was struggling a lot as a practitioner. And I was in a staff with 9 men, and I was the only woman. And I got into the trap of blaming the narrative of being the only woman in an environment full of men. But I was about to quit at a point, and I said, like, I'm going to take 3 steps back, and I'm I'm going to analyze myself in this environment and what am I doing and what can I be better. And it came down to just I was not assertive. I was not confident in myself as a practitioner or as a person. And then as soon as I started to kind of break that wall between this is Ivi, the practitioner, and this is Ivi, the personal, with my players, and I was just very vulnerable. And I started, because I was dealing with one of the best players in the world at that point, right? One of each is
Yes.
It's been my role
We're doing
model.
martyr, right? Yeah. We'll say martyr
It's been my
for the
role model
audience.
since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And that scared me as being my first job. But as soon as I started being my authentic self and kind of being vulnerable, completely changed things. And it changed how I coached, how I served them. And then all of a sudden, I was respected in the room. I was listened in the room. I had a voice because I created that voice in terms of, like, I'm not blaming the system. And I think it's very easy to get into that trap, to blame the system. And I've been lucky to get to work with a lot of people, but I also been in environments that was very sexist. But I think we have to be careful in terms of getting into that trap and blaming the system. We need to change, and we need to be able to look within first and then create the changes that we need. And automatically that's gonna, it did change how I coach my players and allow me to be way more effective.
Kelly, I want to finish up with you with authenticity, because you've been teaching me this from the first summit in 2022. Just for the listeners and the audience, like how to apply it in a way of being authentic. Just first step perspective.
Yeah. Well, I think first it starts within yourself. Like if you're going to work in the sports industry, and probably any industry, it's brutal. And if you're not authentic, you are giving in to all the things we hate about the system. And I think you have to be able to go into any job in any place and be fired. That is the first advice I have to every single person in this room is you have to walk into every job and be willing to be fired. Because if you're not willing to be fired, you will be manipulated by the system and the directors and the people who really don't have a clue about you and your players and your staff. So if you're not willing to give it all up and walk away, if you can't change and evolve, then right away you can be manipulated in this system. And if you're manipulated, your players and your staff are manipulated. So I think that is the absolute to authenticity. And it took me, I've been through some hard things in my career. And the first time I walked away, I was like, of course, scared to death. And at the same time, like, hell yeah, you don't own me. And that is really important in the sports industry, and probably any industry, is you as my boss, you as my company, you as my organization, you don't own me. You are lucky to have me, because I'm going to bring a lot of authenticity, a lot of passion, a lot of experience and knowledge. I'm going to help you become better. So you don't own me. We work together on this. But you really have to be protective in the sports industry, because a lot of people want their hands in this, and a lot of money's being exchanged, and that means that human beings can be taken advantage of. And along that lines, you have to teach your practitioners, your staff, and your players that they also are here because we believe in you, and you get to be authentic. And it is something at Lewis FC we talk about every day when we meet with our players. All I want, bring all your traumas, bring all your problems, bring your past, bring your childhood, bring all the issues that you have, because as humans, we have a lot of issues. Bring them here. Use them to better your life. Bring your authentic self, and we are going to care for you, protect you, support you, and go on this journey. And one of the most proud things I have right now, and I wasn't here, I didn't bring this coach in, but our current coach, within my first few weeks of being in the club, was like, when am I going to be fired? And I said, you're not going to be fired. And she goes, I know, if I don't win, that's what happens in football. You just get fired. And I was like, you're not going to be fired. I said, I will put myself in front of you, between the fans, between the money, between all these things. You're not going to be fired. We are on a journey.
I've got goosebumps during this whole session. I really have, and we've got to wrap up on this one. But Ivi, Kelly, without doubt, such a privilege to have you here on such an important topic and why we are here. So on that note, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.